So thank you all. Welcome everybody to our first presentation during Veterans Week, and one of our best. And I am happy every year to welcome this group of veterans to tell their stories. It's been an ongoing tradition. I think we've done this for about 5 years, 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer. And I'm just super happy that they are leading off our Veterans Week discussion. We have a whole week of discussions for you and presentations and a video that you can watch, a documentary from now until Friday. If you haven't looked at our website, so the vets.umich.edu website, under Veterans Week, we have a full week of stuff for you. It has been updated since many of you got the email a couple weeks ago. And please look at it for any updates. We have actually an ROTC unit wants to present on Wednesday, so they will get their information up this week. And so we have stuff being added even as of today. But first, thank you all for being here for our LGBTQ in the military panel. I will flash up their information and let them introduce themselves and kind of start talking. If I can get to that. There we go. There we go. First we have Nico. So Nico, you want to say hello?
Hi everyone, my name is Nico Fanning. I was in the Army as an intelligence analyst. I got out early 2015. I currentently work as a UX writer in Detroit for the Quicken Loans family. I'm hearing an echo. Never mind. I also write under issues of inclusion and LGBT issues in the military. I've written for the New York Times, Blake Wrights. I've been a guest lecturer at Loyola University of Chicago, American University, panelist for the LGBTQ plus panelist, University of Michigan. I think this is my 3rd time. And I was also Phil's program coordinator for the Military Veteran Student Services. I have a book coming out in 2022.
Ooh. We'll have you back as an author.
Okay, sounds good.
That way you can bill us that way too.
Oh yeah, that'll be the way to go.
Bianca, you're up.
Hi, I am Bianca Racine. I'm currently a training consultant with Quicken Loans. I was served in the Army for 10 years. I started in Boston, and then after my 2-year deployment in Kosovo, came over to Michigan. I did finish up as a specialist, and I have multiple MOSs. I was on Casper versus Snyder. I was at the time the only military representative in any of the states to get ready to go to the Supreme Court had Eddie Windsor not won. So lots of experience in that. I ended up volunteering with the Buddy to Buddy program, for any of you familiar with that. I did that for about 10 years as well. Out of that, I actually created a company called VetCrest Consulting. It is on hold right now due to the coronavirus, but we are looking at another year till relaunch. And basically what we do is we go into companies, corporations, nonprofits, colleges, anybody who will listen as to how to change their environment or their products or whatever the case may be for veterans. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christian Hart. I was a corpsman, a hospital corpsman in the Navy for 5 years. I got out in late 2019. I'm currently studying communications here at U of M, and I work as a nurse at Atria Senior Living in Ann Arbor. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here.
Trying to unmute. There you go. Donald.
Hello. I'm Donald Wiseman, but I usually go by Donnie or Don. Donald has become quite unpopular sometimes. I'm political science. Actually, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, from 2013 to 2017. I was a aviation ordnanceman for the F-35 program. I was stationed at Yuma, Arizona for most of my career. let's see. I currently go to the Flint campus where I study political science and international relations. Um, I'm a transfer student from Delta College. So, and right now I'm in the process of getting ready for graduate school. So, thank you.
And I like your cat in the background.
She
Right.
she loves the camera.
It's part of Zoom meetings. So thank you all for being here again today. So my name is Phil Larson. If you don't know me, I'm the program coordinator for veteran and military services at the University of Michigan. Don and I did the same job in different branches of the military. I worked on weapon systems with B1 and the A10, doing the same kind of stuff, loading, unloading, weapon system stuff. So, and my final rank was staff sergeant when I got out. But thank you all for being here again. Thanks all of the folks we have watching this today too as well. So I am going to stop the share. So we just have our folks on. So questions we have today. Again, the format for us today, for all of you in attendance, we're going to be talking a little bit with these fine folks. Just asking a few questions, letting them kind of riff where they want to do it. And then at the end, we're going to be able to do questions from you all. If you have questions as we go along, please put them in the chat box. We'll have a Q&A definitely at the end if we have time, but also if there's some really good questions, I'll be monitoring them as we come through. If there's some great ones that we pepper in here, I will make sure to ask them even as we go along. So this question for everybody is, I want to start out a little bit about what I always like doing a little chronological kind of stuff. What made you join? Like, why did you decide the military service was the place for you? And anybody can start.
I can go first. So I was raised in Connecticut, and I was getting ready to hit the job force. And then when I turned on the TV, I watched a plane hit a tower. So that right there, I was 17, and that's the first time I ever saw my dad cry because he's a New Yorker. And I was like, I'm not going to stand for that, So I originally tried to get in, and they found out I had asthma. And it was sports induced. I'm like, well, that's not going to work out for me. Eventually I did meet a recruiter, and I got those PT scores up, probably the only time, because who really likes running? And eventually I had gotten back in as I was working 3 jobs. I'm like, I can't do this. I need structure. I need a career. I don't have a family, so there's no one affording my way to college. I got to do this on my own, and this is it. And at least it's for a good cause. So I joined in Boston, and that was 2005. So wow, it's 2020. So that's where I started off.
Yeah, so I had maybe perhaps a fairly atypical experience. I got kicked out when I came out as gay. And so I went to live with family in Italy and Germany for a while. And some of them were in the Navy, and they loved it. They couldn't stop talking about it. They had all these amazing opportunities. They loved it so much that when I tried to get into it at the time, the Navy was like essentially not accepting anybody. So I ended up enlisting in the Army instead, much to like everyone's detrimental thought process for that. But it was, yeah, so that's how I got started.
Awesome. I was working at a Chamber of Commerce in my senior year of high school, and I like had to go around to local businesses and pass out flyers all the time. And I ended up talking with a naval recruiter while passing out flyers, and it just seemed like the best opportunity available, and it really was. It made a great impact on my life.
For me, court order. No, just kidding. Actually, I was my senior year. I was literally, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really have any money for college. I didn't have a plan for college. It was kind of like, I don't know. This vice principal was like obsessed with getting kids ready for college, little students, and I was like, I don't even know what any of this is. Letters of recommendation. What is this? And then my friend, whose family, he has his family history in the Marine Corps. He approaches me like, takes me to a Marine recruiter, and he got me interested, and and sold me on the idea, and yeah, he pretty much. Then I find out I was part of the referral system, so he sold me out for a gym bag, for a Marine Corps gym bag. But that's okay. I got one too. But that's how I got in there. I didn't really know what the military was. I mean, I knew what it was from TV, but I never really had thought about joining it. I know it's just it was that.
Thanks a lot. So talking a little bit about that, we're in now, so we're in the military. You've joined. Can you talk a little bit about what your job was? Whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, how cool it was, cool things about it. Was it what you thought when you were in the military, like when you first joined? And then we'll move a little bit inside of like what life was like for you inside the military too.
I was equal parts disappointed and relieved with my position because the way the recruiters had talked it up, I was going to be like jumping off of roofs and like a spy and just being absolutely ridiculous in the intelligence community. It wasn't anything like that, which is probably really good because I'm not a roof jumping kind of guy. So it was great. I mostly sat behind a desk. I worked with classified information, compiled briefings, gave those briefings to commanders. It was more desk work than it was 007 work.
I originally was not actually supposed to be an aviation ordnanceman. Somebody at MCT had put down the wrong MOS code, so they sent me to Pensacola instead of Meridian. And then as I went through the whole A school, C school, and until I got to the fleet, it was kind of just passing the buck, like, oh, someone else will take care of this. And then eventually I was given a decision to go back and become a aviation supply management clerk or stay as an ordnanceman. I didn't want to go back to student status, so I stayed with where I was. And then I did not like my job because I originally went to school for Harriers, but then they sent me to F-35s. So the Marine Corps works in mysterious ways like that. And then, but my favorite job was when I got to be an MP for a year. I really wish I had been an MP. So.
I worked in hospitals for my first 4 years, and I got really good, like, diverse experience in hospitals overseas in Okinawa and Guantanamo Bay, working on wards and in an emergency room. And then for my last year, I could have stayed in Guantanamo Bay when I was dying to get out, so I decided to go with the Marines. And that brought a lot of challenges, but I learned a lot about leadership and like a lot about what I was capable of, I guess. And yeah, it was a great experience.
For me, I think it was a little different. When I first joined, I thought I was always going to be an American troop. That was not the case for my first deployment. I was attached to NATO. So I just got out of the, basic training, AIT, and I'm like, I want to go to Iraq. And they're like, you're going to NATO. And I'm like, oh, okay. What is that? Tell me the things. I don't know. And as a result, it was hard because I went from, learning everything I had to in basic to forget everything you learned in basic. That doesn't apply here. Here's some vodka. So it was a good, I almost feel guilty for my first deployment because I did get that opportunity to drink a lot with a lot of different nations. Most of it I don't really remember. I'll be truthful. But at the same time, I think that being a New Englander, we're very patriotic. I mean, we live it, New England Patriots. That's a thing that I'm not too pleased with. But as a result, being attached to NATO kind of opened doors for me on a new focus of different cultures. And that is something that I started really diving into. I didn't know anything about Spain, but here I am hanging out with the Spanish army. I come from Italian descent. Let me go eat dinner with the Italians this evening. So even though my job was an armorer and I'm fixing equipment left and right, and I'm getting, you know, ammunition to Sarajevo on helicopters that I have to order because I'm a 92 Yankee supply, it was almost different in the sense that I didn't have the same pressures, and I could also learn and absorb more than I believe most people get a chance to during their deployment. So I was very fortunate in that aspect. And as we'll speak on later, I think it actually became pivotal for me to be in those roles at that time. Lots of vodka.
It always leads to good stories. So
Yeah, Bill, I'd love to remember them for you.
So as we're going through our service, I do want to hit upon the identity piece. And I want to give you time a little bit and talk a little bit when, and it might have been always, but kind of talk to us a little bit about when you were really acutely aware of your identity in the military. Was there a point? Was there an inflection point? Was it always the case? Was it always open? Was it never open? Kind of give us a sense of how this identity fit into your, or did not fit really even into your military service.
I was fortunate that when I decided to go into the military, I had 3 gunkles who were all naval gay men who had served in the Navy. And they had a lot of advice, some of it good, some of it really bad. But the decision that I made, much against their recommendation, was to enter the service essentially completely openly. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was going to be repealed in about 6 months from the time that I started. So, I mean, with the exception of basic training, I was very open about my sexuality. And it didn't really become an issue until I got to my primary duty station, which was an infantry unit. And I think that there's this idea of social capital that comes with it. And in some ways, I kind of hobbled myself because I came to the unit openly gay, and that was all that a lot of people could see me for a very, very long time. Whereas other soldiers who came to the unit perhaps not openly gay and then came out later seemed to have a little bit easier time transitioning because they'd already established some of those friendships. So I was pretty acutely aware of my sexuality and how it was working for and against me in many ways while I was in the military, pretty much right off the bat.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I actually came out in the Marine Corps, my first year in the Marine Corps. When I got to my unit, I knew I had known all through high school, but I was in the closet about it. And then I came out in the Marine Corps because, like, when I got to my unit, my shop, like all of, like, you know, the PFCs and Lance Corporals were like really pressuring me to go with them to the strip club, and like they had like all these women that they wanted me to fix the, I guess, barracks regulars that were from Yuma. And I don't know if anyone's ever been to Yuma, it's not really the best place in the world. And I was just like, you know, geez, leave me alone. So I just like, you know, finally I just said, you know, I just came out to all of them right there. Of course, it was only my peers though, because they really congratulated toward me, you know, like, happy for me, great, that's great. But they asked me not to like tell the top brass in our shop, like the master sergeant and the warrant officer and stuff, like, so, because they said that, like, I mean, I knew that the gunny was a bigot about it. And one of the last Marines that was there who was like openly gay, they had like consistently fapped him out to like mess duty or the range, or to just get him out of the shop. Like, they felt like he was an embarrassment. So I was aware of it and I let them know, but I had to like still keep it to myself. So
I was 18, or no, I was 19 when I joined in 2014. It was like pretty recently after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So with the exception of boot camp, I was pretty much always out to anybody who asked. And I think that it was good for me to be able to like get comfortable with like speaking about my identity. And yeah, I was really eager to be part of the community. My first duty station, there was a really good outserve organization, which is like a organization of LGBTQ service members that like work together to like just prevent discrimination and educate people on LGBTQ history and stuff. And so we would do like Thanksgivings together, and like yeah, I had like a lot of really good higher or like people who'd been enlisted for longer, who were like role models for me and stuff, and were able to kind of guide me along the way.
You know, identity is such a extremely crazy thing until you got some years behind you. So firstly, thank you, panelists. I feel a bit old as I served 5 years under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So let's just age thing here for a second. So I think in terms of identity, and I really want to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to take up a little more time on this particular subject because there are some things I want to get across and some things that I know for a fact have not been talked about. So the first for me is when I joined the National Guard, it was with the active decision of, I do not want big army in my business. I was 19 turning 20. I didn't know if I wanted a family. That was the last thing from my mind. At the time it was, I do not want to have to go through a Salem witch hunt. I choose to be National Guard. My life would have been completely different if Don't Ask, Don't Tell wasn't even in the picture. Years from now, you know, if we had somewhat of the same culture we did now, active duty all the way. So that already made me realize that I had to step outside the box and creatively think of ideas to make even the military work. I had to adjust. And in saying this, I'm going to bring up a conversation that many don't think about, many don't know about, and many don't talk about in the sense of, when I joined basic training, I met a man there that was extremely gay. And it was during the time where it was, are you gay? Are you gay? We'll get you out. Dishonorable discharge. You'll never be able to go to college. You'll never be able to get an apartment. You'll never be able to get housing. Forget about your career. Are you gay? And I want to stress that through my time in service, I've met other people that have had to make the same decision I did. And I went up to him one day. I'm like, dude, you're out. If you don't figure something out, they will get you. And he said, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Good luck to you. He goes, will you marry me? Yeah. So this is something that a lot of people back then actually did. And I was one of them. I married a gay man. He married me, and we were safe. It was something that we had to where if somebody ever brought it up or anything of that nature, we would be able to maintain our military careers with the defense of, I'm not gay, here's my marriage certificate. I once went to a large scale LGBT cooperative in Iowa with the Lansing Community College. And when I was there, there was a speaker who said, by the way, I married a woman and she's cool with it because she knows I'm gay. And I'm like, I'm not alone. This is something that is happening. And it is something that even to this day, it was more of, I had to do this. And sit and think for a moment, like you identify as lesbian. My whole life, I was kicked out of my own house, much like Nico. Like I didn't have a family anymore. I had to create an identity where one was not yet understood at a very young age. In marrying him, and during my deployment, I actually did see a sergeant get that "Are you gay?" witch hunt casted on her. And mind you, I was in Massachusetts, one of the most freeing, states in the nation at that time for LGBT rights. And still there was that hunt of, are you? Do we even need you here? So I kept quiet. And I played probably the best heterosexual you would have ever met in your life. I believe I deserve a Grammy. If there is one for that, I'll let you know my address. But I had to hear it every day from sergeants. Can you believe that we've got a dyke in the unit? I'm like, I can't believe that. That's crazy. And I had to put on that face and become an identity that I didn't even know that was in reference to, I'm turning on my own kind for my own salvation because I believe I need to be here. And so identity isn't even something I discovered until probably within the past 3 years, and I've been out for 6. Identity is something that you can't really grasp until you're no longer in those situations to be able to understand who you are. When I joined from Massachusetts, you know, I took a one-stop ticket. I said, I can't be in Massachusetts anymore. I gotta go. I got one backpack, a one-way ticket to Lansing, and that's where I landed. I found housing that day, and I said, this is where I gotta start over. And my first time in Michigan, I'm like, not only do I have to worry about being LGBT here, I've got to worry about being a female. So already every bar and standard I had almost seemed unmeasurable. It almost seemed like I am climbing this mountain and it's freaking raining and I am sliding every step of the way. I don't have time to think about my identity. I have to think about my survival. I have to think about, what am I going to do to proactively stay where I am not wanted? I am not welcomed. One of my first drills was, I don't believe females should be in the military. Thank you, Sergeant. You know, so at the time I had long hair, thank you, COVID, I'm currently getting that back. So it was easier for me to address everyone as a heterosexual female, married, and my husband was taking care of his mom somewhere. Half the time I didn't even know where he was. Texas, I believe, because he was serving. And so I think identity is really important to understand that you can change your identity at any time. We all have identities that we have to be for the situations, as long as we are aware of what those identities do to us. And I'm sure we'll get into further conversation of how much that eats you away, to where my identity in the military was more of, I want to be here for life. I have to show them I deserve to be here. Just as a female, I'll deal with the gay thing later. And then so for 5 years, I just had to prove that no matter what, I was willing to wake up early, not get sleep, go to bed late. What's sleep? I'm 3 days on coffee. I deserve to be here. And so I don't think identity really struck for me until, again, the past few years. And I'm still discovering, I don't have to be one specific identity at any given day or minute or hour of the week. I'm still discovering that. And I'm lucky to be able to say that. I don't see that as something that I have to hide from anymore. The very self-discovery of who am I? So.
I think so. Those are extremely good points to bring up. Thank you very much for that. And I want to get, I want to get to the other panelists, just what you think of Bianca's talk of how did any of those things ring true for you, especially when we're talking about identity? You know, I hear a lot about kind of choosing what identity you put on, or even you said like the corrosive effects it has on you of either hiding or shifting or yeah, just so anybody else on the panel have thoughts on that?
Geez, I mean, I never thought I'd go that far. I got in like after Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but as someone who was, I guess, straight passing, I was out, but for the most part, I never really talked about it. So I'd pick up from like senior staff and officers, at least just saying the most bigoted stuff about Marines in the unit that were gay or lesbian, and female as well, of course. I understand the duality, having to live up to both of those standards. I just think of was it my gunny, for example. It was like extremely open about it. Like I remember one of my corporals bringing up this song like called "Take Me to Church" or whatever, and he's like mentioning how that song's about. The gunny was saying, "Oh, I like that song," and then the gunny, my corporal was like, that song's about beating up homosexuals, and my gunny's like, what's wrong with that? And it's just like, oh my God. and then the master sergeant, like he would be consistently like if you said anything that seemed like not typical of a straight male, or he was quite the boomer in my opinion. He'd kind of like wince, like he'd come across as this nice grandpa guy, but he'd just wince at like anything that was, how did he word it? Faggy. Sorry if I offend anyone, but that's just that was what the words were. And then my even worse was my sergeant major. He would frequently complain about his staff sergeant and S1, who was very openly gay, and he was just like complaining about it, like, oh, I miss the old Corps, I miss the old Corps, I get rid of this guy. And yeah, so I mean, and I guess being a wallflower, I was able to just, I knew it was not a very good place to even consider, like, if I had someone, would I bring them around like family day, or would I feel comfortable talking about any of this if I had any problems or issues, like. So I remember when I had to go to medical, and the doctor asked me certain questions, and I was like afraid to answer. Like, he asked me if I've had engaged in homosexual intercourse, and I was like afraid to answer the question because, like, hey, does my unit find out? Because I don't want to be outed by this doctor. I don't want to be outed by anybody. Of course, because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was gone, they were powerless. But they, like I said about, I think his name was Antoine, was the previously open gay Marine from my shop. Like, they would find ways to, like, well, you're a terrible Marine. We need to get rid of you. You need to target you with reasons to get you out of their space. So, I guess some of the baggage from Don't Ask, Don't Tell still exists. But I cannot fully feel what you have felt, Bianca. Is that how I pronounce it? So I can't imagine having to pretend to be married and stuff. Man. So
Interesting you bring some of those points up though, Donnie. Especially the like medical point. I hadn't thought about that in a while. But I remember going to medical one time, and I was on PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylactic to prevent you from getting HIV if you end up having sex with somebody who is HIV positive and doesn't know it. And you have to do like these 3-month STD checkups. And I went in, and it was a new doctor, and he just started grilling me about why I was on this drug and why I needed it. And I was very open and said, the basics of my medical history. And he started yelling, like actually raised his voice, and like in this, medical supposed to be kind of safe space, and talking about like how dangerous it was, like gay sex, and how like it was going to destroy my body. And and I think that ideology too was kind of reflected. There's this idea that somehow my sexuality like was the end all be all and superseded everything else about my personality. I think a great example is as an infantry unit, and there's this idea that you kind of have to continually prove yourself that you are capable of taking care of yourself and other people in your unit. And to some extent, I understand that. But I think that being intelligence, there's already kind of this like idea of, oh my God, it's a pencil pusher at an infantry unit. What are we gonna do with that? And then to add being gay on top of that, just like played into every stereotype that they had without even like having ever met me, even before I came to the unit. So a lot of what you're talking about, Donnie, was actually like really directed at me. Every day people would challenge me on things about like, why did I do something a certain way? Why, hadn't I gone to the range 3 extra times just for the hell of it, like everyone else had? And, did I think I was better than everyone? And this continual barrage of like needlessly attempting to get me to break down or prove myself in some way as like a compatible or worthy soldier for that unit, that went far past like, the typical military, like prove yourself mentality. I mean, I was at that unit for 3 years, and you know, on my last day, people were still doing that. So I think that, you know, that there's a burdensomeness that comes with different types of like masculine cultures in the military. And I think that those like predominantly hypermasculine, toxically masculine cultures really drive a lot of this outright harassment. And yeah, so I can relate quite a bit to it.
Talking about what struck me too, and I want to make sure I address this a little bit, is you know, Nico and Bianca especially, and I don't know if I heard this from Christian or Don, but you didn't have family really going into the military. Like there was this disconnect of family before the military. Wondering your thoughts. Did you know, was that partially why you joined, to kind of find some of this family? And then, you know, did you find it there, either before or afterwards, in like a veteran community or as or active duty?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a driving factor for me. I liked the idea of this like community of brothers and sisters, and you know, developing this identity of togetherness under like kind of that whole, you know, it doesn't matter what you are, we all bleed green idea. And so it was really disappointing to enter into a service and realize that was more of a talking point than it was a culture that was lived daily by everyone. That being said, I did make a lot of incredible connections with people who went out of their way to try to stand in defense of me. I had just some incredible, specifically women, who were just like all stars. Like I think of them as like my inspiration, and they're just badasses. I can't think of another more PC word for it. There's rock stars. And to this day, you know, they're doing incredible things and advocating for people that you know, didn't have a lot of advocates. And they were definitely people that went to bat, putting their own careers and their own contracts on the line to make sure that I was maybe not necessarily treated fairly, but that the harassment, when it did happen, was kind of nipped in the bud. So yeah, I think that in terms of family, I didn't have much going in, and I was fortunate. I try to look at it as I'm fortunate for the ones that I did gather when I left.
For me, I did, you know, my stepfather kicked me out of my house when I was about 13 years old. So a lot of that was living on the streets and meeting people and, you know, still going to school, high school at the time and things like that. So, I mean, I did certainly have friends that supported my decision, again, because of the region I was in. It was just the thing everybody was doing. In terms of finding a family or a group of people, I can't say that I actively looked. My feeling going into the military was I need to pretty much just dodge bullets as often as possible, in terms of, you know, if ever I was asked, you know, my unit would be like, hey, come to the bar with us. I'm like, no, you know, I've got to do something else. I would actively keep away from most of the people in my unit, to where even though I served with some of them for 6 years, when I got out and they added me to Facebook, they're like, wait, you're gay? I'm like, whole life, you know? So I can't, I've met some people. Certainly I have one that is absolutely like my sister. I've watched her kids grow up, and I've been involved with that family, and they've taken me in. But I don't think that I ever really felt comfortable going out to places with my unit or experiencing things with my unit, you know, that would put me at risk of messing up the story that I had already had to give them. You know, every time I spoke with someone, I felt that was a risk. Like if I say something that might get them to think like, wait, didn't you say this before? I didn't want that to be something that would have to come up. So most of the time when my unit was, you know, again, I mean, when we were down in Augusta, hey, let's go to the casino. It's like, no, you know, I gotta read this book about something. I don't know. And that alienated me in general, because obviously nobody wants to hang out with somebody that they can tell clearly does not want to hang out with them. But at the time, I really felt I had no choice, and I chose to live on my own island. It's not that I didn't hear people sticking up for LGBT rights. It was just not in a way or in an environment that would make me feel comfortable to invite anyone over or to have someone come to a family. Hey, this is my friend, you know, now we're at this FRG event. It just wasn't possible for me. So I made the conscious decision to stay on my own for fear of just losing it if it were to come to light. So
how has it been, real quick, and I want to leave time for questions, but I just want to hit on like post-service. How has it been for you as veterans after you've gotten out? Have you found a more welcoming community among vets? Have you found, you know, hey, I just put the veteran identity into a box and kind of put it into a shoebox in the corner and get on with my life kind of thing? Where do you find yourself as veterans, and does this identity, how does this, you know, we talk a lot about intersexuality of multiple identities, and certainly Nico and I have had long talks over this, where like long talks.
Okay, they get it, they were long.
But what, no, mostly because of me. How do you feel these two identities intersect, or do they at all? Kind of veteran and GLBTQ.
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, I was the president of the Veterans Association at Delta College, and then before Rona, I was a work study at our student veteran resource center. But for me, I've kind of been hesitant to hang around veterans. I don't know. It kind of just sometimes just bring back bad memories, like from Yuma and 121. Just was not a very pleasant time in my life, and I don't know, I just overall just the Marine Corps. I mean, the Marine Corps was just a bad experience for me, and I don't know. It's kind of veterans, just especially Marine Corps veterans, they just kind of bring back, and I kind of just fade into society. Like military, I never heard of it. I played Call of Duty. What about it? You know. But I try to, like, you know, being, I guess, in my fraternity, I'm our only veteran. So I kind of, like, you know, kind of take the mantle, like, okay, I need to put aside my own personal things and, like, you know, try to, you know, be a part of the cause. And we have a charity that we have for veterans. And then for, like, I usually, I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but like some veterans is kind of can be quite conservative in their opinions, and especially towards homosexuality. That's another reason I kind of just steer clear from that demographic. Not always the case. It's just it's not very uncommon. I kind of don't really want to go around, like, you know, American Legions or VFWs. I mean, I feel like there's that disconnect with, like, veterans from Vietnam and, like, the horrifying face, like, gay Marine. Oh my God, what is the Corps coming to? You know, like, I don't want to be around that. So I don't know. I guess I pick and choose when I'm a veteran, I guess. So always gay though. Anyways.
I think that I got out of the military in late 2019, and then kind of Corona hit. This is actually the first LGBTQ related veterans event I've been to. So I guess my like relating LGBTQ, I was definitely more out and proud while I was in the military than now that I'm a veteran. It doesn't come up as much. Yeah, I guess my circle has kind of gotten smaller. I think a lot of that is related to COVID and just having to stay at home. And
I think for me, since being out of the military, I mean, the only time I've ever identified as LGBT and veteran was during Casper versus Snyder, when even for me, I couldn't hide it anymore. It was, here is this really big court case that I have no idea how I got involved in. I'm currently in, and my unit now knows, at least my leadership. And so I think that's the first time I had ever identified as both equally and together at the same time. That messed up my first marriage. Well, second, I guess, to my ex-wife. I guess we can call it second. Let's just do that. And that was a really low point for me. Like I started the drinking. I would also avoid American Legions. So when I did meet veterans, I'm like, just come to my house. I'm not going out with you. Like I don't want to be in that environment. I think there was, that was really a pivotal moment, because soon after that, I lost absolutely everything, from my house to my job to, my entire sanity, reading the things and comments that were being said. Somehow I ended up in a newspaper in India, and I'm like, shit, now the leadership's going to pay attention. But I think, in rebuilding, thanks to the Buddy to Buddy program at that time, I was able to, anybody who has seen a video on Buddy to Buddy with myself and Bob Short, my life was saved by a Vietnam veteran that I didn't even want to talk to, because I was like, how's he going to understand a thing I have to say? And that was really the first support system I think I had ever gotten. And with him, I was able to find, after 5 tries, a VA doctor that started pointing me in the right direction, to include things like identity and how do I feel after leaving the military? Do I belong? Do I really want to stay in the military? Was one of the biggest struggles for me to figure out, because I thought I'd be doing it for life. And now happily I report that, even though my business is on hold, I am able to at least help veterans. I've had a lot of LGBT veterans reach out to me. How do we navigate the VA? How do we navigate these things that we don't understand, and they don't understand how to help us with these things? And so I think I've tried, and especially now, I work for Quicken Loans, and I can honestly say that the squad I have now that's my team. And it took me a very long time to find them. And I think for the most part, with them and my current role and me being married now, finding myself a stepmom, I'm not really sure how she still trusts me with children, but cool. I think that they're breathing. It's fine. It took a while to get here. It took a while to even say what's life like out of the military, because I'm still discovering that. I have a lot of things that I need to reverse, and it's an everyday struggle or an everyday win. So for me, I'm still going. I'm still trying to find that answer.
Cool. Nico, did you want to chime in? Or we got a couple people say hello. Nico, do you want to chime in, and I'll read this question?
No, we can go into the questions if you'd like.
So Antonio asks, how did you all keep your sanity and mental health, both during your service and now? The Buddy to Buddy program sounds like a great support system, but what other supports are there?
Yeah. So I actually ended up starting a kind of underground LGBT focused support group while I was in the military. And it was the very definition of a safe space. So we had a lot of people that were in compromising positions. Either they were high-ranking leadership, or they were in a heterosexual marriage but were curious, or they were using substances to kind of hide the fact that they were LGBT focused. So a lot of people in like really precarious situations. So good old Grinder, we ended up setting up a kind of bi-monthly group meeting where we just could kind of sit down and talk about it in a really safe space, and chit chat, and then kind of go our own separate ways and pretend we didn't know each other. So, in some ways that was really helpful for me, because it really highlighted, I got to use a platform of being like the tester for a lot of people. They pointed at me and said, like, what was your experience doing this? And I really could be honest and be like, it's not been super great. Like, I mean, I encourage people to come out and encourage you to live your truest selves. But I mean, an honest examination of what's going on, you really should weigh the cost benefits to this. And that felt good, actually, to be able to do that. So that for me was kind of a mutual support aspect. So, yeah.
Um, I did not have any mental health support at all. I mean, maybe it's been pretty draining actually, the whole experience, because I didn't do anything about it. I mean, I kind of had like a support group in my coworkers, and though most of them could be quite ignorant and sometimes even intolerant, just overall, um, I kind of, I mean, it was kind of like unity through combined hatred of our leadership, like corporals and sergeants and staff NCOs. We just hated them. Like they were just so toxic, so just very bad at their jobs. A very abusive relationship, I'd call it, honestly. So I kind of like, it was like we had like that, but I did change some opinions though. Like my one corporal was like, I used to think homosexuality was a choice, but I realized, they showed them the error in their ways. But as for like taking care of it, I didn't really do anything about it besides the usual drinking, and that wasn't very good for it. So that's what oh, actually I did. Actually, no, I forgot. I did talk to the MFLAC, the Marine Family Life Counselor. She was really cool. So I did, but then like I kind of stopped going because like my gunny was like, "Oh, you're going here a lot. What's wrong with you? Crazy or something?" I'm just like, "Oh boy." So I had to like space it out, and I don't know. I didn't want to get put on suicide watch or considered a basket case or something. So even if you did go get official help, there's always those like red flags that someone would find about it or something. So yeah.
For me, I didn't keep sane. And then this reverts back to the identity. When you don't know who you are, how do you know how you're supposed to handle yourself? So I found myself drinking a lot. I found myself popping pills. I found myself almost very close to being a 22. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, I was one phone call away. Had that person not answered, I would not be here today. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of stress. And in terms of my mental health, it took, I would say, a good, I started going to therapy in 2010. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder that year. So that was a good start. But something I learned from Bob Short was like, if you don't like the doctor, you are free to choose your provider. You do not have to stay there if it's not something that you think is working for you. And so 5 therapists later, I met one at Detroit VA, and I'm like, listen, dude, I've been given medication. I can't do pills. I can't even take them for my back because I know I'll slip. I need something that is logical and sound and will work. And he said, well, I practice mindfulness, and I kind of laughed, and I was like, if you're gonna have me hug a tree, I'm walking out. I'm done. Like I'm not into that hippie stuff. Just tell me what I need to get my life back on track. He's like, try this, and for the first time ever, he just had me meditate and stay in the moment and be like, I'm here. I don't have to worry about a sergeant. I don't have to worry about LGBT. I don't have to be anyone, anywhere, worried about anything in this moment in time. As a result of that, I became a Buddhist. So I left I thought at the time I had to be Christian religious because I was in the military and everybody else was. And I had to, go along with that. And finally, I started going to temple and really figuring out I'm in control of my own brain. I'm in control of my own thoughts. I'm in control of my own life. And I can take that any way I want. And I ended up I'm still within that community. I meditate. I read up on self-care every day. I watch YouTube videos. I have picked apart as much of mental health as I possibly can. And I have gained control of at least the understanding to, I know when to ask for help. My wife is tremendous at this. She's a nurse, so I feel confident every day I can talk to her and be like, this is how I'm feeling, and it will get situated. I haven't had any spirals in quite some time. I'd say, maybe about 3-4 years now. So I'm confident in my ability to help other people and look for those support systems. The Buddy to Buddy program actually no longer exists within University of Michigan's NSPAM program. It was so successful, it is now under the VA. So when it comes to, which first of all, I mean, as LGBT, I never thought I'd see like anything LGBT related in the VA. And during my time as CEO of VetCrest, I actually had a meeting with the head of VA here in Michigan. And I'm like, you guys need to overturn these bad paper discharges. So for many of you who don't know, obviously, it was up to your command during Don't Ask, Don't Tell what type of discharge you were given. Honorable obviously would allow for you to get back in and it would not affect your civilian life. Dishonorable affected everything. And we have many people here in the United States that served under the US military and were given these bad paper discharges and it destroyed their life. And if you're going to come up to us, VA, or any type of support network and say that you support veterans, that is where you should be starting. And that is something that hopefully will gain momentum in Michigan. Here in Michigan, we're first for a lot of things when it comes to acceptance. So I think that helps me control my mental health now, other than the fact that I have an amazing support system at work with Quicken. I was in the Built for Zero program where they said, we will end veterans homelessness, and they asked for my input. So company-wise, family-wise, mental health is going to be a struggle every day, but managing it and being happy of where you are now is how we progress and move forward. So.
There we go. I had to mute myself because my cat was meowing incessantly. So they said, somebody put on the chat, if you want to look, Natrina, I'm hoping I pronounced that right. She said she's director of Ingham and Clinton County Department of Veterans Affairs. They're in the development stage of an initiative for LGBTQ veterans group and welcome collaboration. So she's in the chat there too. N Blackstock at Ingham.org. If anybody's interested. Any other questions does anybody have for the panel or anything that we haven't? We have this chat open for a little while. Yet if people want to stay on, it is 11, so kind of officially people can drop off, but I want to make sure that people get a chance to be heard, or if there's other things that you want to add. I'm kind of curious about the Casper versus Snyder actually case myself, Bianca, because I've never heard of it. Kind of briefly, like what was that case about?
So my ex-wife and I woke up in Oakland County, and we woke up to, hey, you guys can get married. And we're like, we need to do this now because that's going to close. Then we got married. We waited in line at Oakland County, I believe it was another 300 people just like us wanting to get married. And so we did. And we drove from Oakland County to Lansing to go be with our friends, family, and support, congratulating us there. And as we were at dinner, my friend who was with us pulled up, news and was like, you guys aren't married anymore. The state will not recognize it. And if you need anything, you got to talk to the federal government. I said, well, I've been there. That's not helpful. That takes too long for anything I need. And at the time, my unit was thinking of sending me to Afghanistan. And so I called the state and I'm like, hey, in the event I die, what does my wife get? And they're like, nothing. She'd have to go through federal government. I said, number one, have you ever tried to call the federal government? Because that's not going to work out well. And there was this I think I would say that's when the rage and the bitterness really started in with my mental health, which is I served for 2 years of my life. I pretended to be whoever you needed me to be to prove I needed to be here. And you're going to tell me that if I die, my family doesn't get shit. Not happening. So what I did was I ended up starting this small Facebook group, or what started off as a small Facebook group, because we are a small LGBTQ community here in Michigan. I said, I need to do something. And so we started adding in person after person that got married. And the next thing you know, I've got 1,200 people on a locked Facebook chat asking people like our current Secretary of State, what do we do legally? Or any of you that know Jay of the ACLU of Michigan telling us about our rights and what we could do. And it was probably the most organized unit in terms of that marriage. We called ourselves the 300 Club, and we had questions and we were angry and we were like, this can't happen. And it happened to be with the ACLU in that group. They picked seven families to represent Michigan in suing for our marriages back, for our freedom to marry. At the same time, Eddie Windsor was going up and up in the Supreme Court cases, and I believe Oberfell was next. And if that didn't turn out, my wife and I, Casper versus Snyder, was to be next if we still didn't have equality at that time. So we did make it all the way to Ohio. We had a lot of people in our business. We had a lot of people, we were targeted, a lot of hate mail. They found out where my ex-wife worked. So there was a lot of fear in that. But we listened to the lawyers and we did everything we needed to do. And luckily it got to Windsor 1, and that was able to affect the entire US. So I'm lucky it did not get that far, but it was a stressful time, definitely.
Final thing is before we go, and anybody can stay on, please stay on if you can. I wanted to just ask Christian too, because he talked about being a first year student here at U of M. Kind of how's it been, man? So it's been locked down and everything else, but how have you been, and how are classes, and how are you faring as a student?
I'm making it happen. I'm going to classes and learning as much as I can over these Zoom calls. I think there's definitely, like, it's nice to be able to go to class in my pajamas. I love that. But I think it's hard for me to put myself out there, I guess, and like be willing to like go to a club meeting over Zoom. And so I think I need to work on kind of going to more meetings and panels and going to more Zoom calls and like interacting with university events more. But overall, we're staying afloat. We're gonna make it happen and get through this pandemic.
Absolutely. We have some stuff for you. So please join in, everything from some cool panels for information to playing Among Us and just, dumping people off into space. So that's can be cathartic too, so. Everybody, very much, I want to thank you for being here on this panel today, for talking and being open and talking about your experiences. Again, good, bad, ugly, as far as military stuff. Very welcome. And thank you very much, especially kicking off, this really wonderful and successful kickoff to our Veterans Week. You all have made my day. And have made this very, very successful, a very, very successful hour. And I want to thank you. And I hope you're considered joining it. I mean, I always am in recruitment mode when we get off, as Nico knows. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for next year. Think about it, and please volunteer to kind of come back on one of our panels. Not only this one, but a student panel, women in the military panel, any of the panels you think that you can contribute, please join us. And I really, really thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate, and again, we have a full week of events lined up after this all the way through Friday. Anybody have any closing things you want to? I'll let you guys close this out. Anything you want to say before we leave, panelists?
I just wanted to say something about the family thing. Like when I was in the military, like coming out to my family was still difficult, even though, even though I had already come out in the Marine Corps, so especially to my dad, who was like really homophobic, but he's gotten better. So I don't have any bad relate. I think the only thing he really feels betrayed about is being a Dallas Cowboys fan. He hates the Cowboys. So, but it's I don't know. I found at U of M. At the Flood campus, I've been the person I always wanted to be that I could never be in high school or the Marine Corps. So I'm enjoying my time here. And I don't know, it's even being in a fraternity like me, vice president of fraternity, is just crazy. So yes, so thank you. And thank you for everyone showing up here and hearing our stories.
For me, I think my send off would just absolutely be, while I've seen tremendous growth in terms of the culture outside of the military, there's obviously a culture that needs to be fixed within it. If you are thinking about being in the military, either LGBT or as an ally, change doesn't happen overnight, but it does start with you. I think the number one thing I could say right now, I mean, even as early as March of this year, there was a report out on, experiences of sexual harassment, sexual assault in the LGBT community in the military. That's something that can be stopped, and that's something that we can work on. And so if you see something, say something. If you are a support, if you are in the military, like, how can I just help and be a better ally? Reach out. We can Google, we have literally the internet at our fingertips, especially during now. And so there's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of work to do, but it's possible. I mean, look even how far we've come since I've been out. So, just keep going and keep raising your voices and keep advocating for even the future of the military. I've got 2 boys watching me now, for sons, and if whatever way they choose to be when they're out, I just want to be as vocal and as supportive as I can. And I hope anyone listening to this does the same. There's still problems. They can still be fixed, but they still need to be worked on.
Cool. Again, thank you all very much for your service. And thank you very much for being here. And thank you for sharing everything with us. So I really, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. We've gotten tons of thank yous and appreciation on our chats. I am actually going to save them in a file, and I will email our panelists these as some thank yous to you all. So thanks again, everybody. Please join us for the rest of Veterans Week, and we hope to see more of you this week. Thanks again. And we will sign off for our official part. So thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Thanks so much.